I'm Evan Cross, 29, and Christmas dinner ended the moment my father decided to evict me between the ham and dessert, like it was an item on the agenda. The table glowed with candles I bought, food I cooked, and decorations I paid to replace after last year's lights shorted out. My fork was halfway to my mouth when he said my name the way people say, problem, slow and sharp, and told me I had until January 1st to get out. No shouting, no drama, just a calm announcement that I was done being welcome in the house I'd been financing for months. My mother stared at her plate and rearranged the same green beans over and over like precision could stop the blast radius. My younger sister Lily, 18 and too thin from stress, froze with her glass hovering near her lips. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked louder than anyone breathed, the same clock I paid to have restored last spring when it seized up. I looked at my father, Mark Cross, once built like a wall from decades in roofing, now slimmer and brittle after his injury ended his career. The injury didn't hurt him as much as losing control did. Every bill in that house had my name on it. Every utility, every insurance payment, every grocery run quietly covered since Mom lost her admin job. I told myself it was temporary help, that family didn't keep score, that things would even out. Apparently they evened out just fine without me. I set my fork down gently because breaking things would only prove his point. I wished him a calm Merry Christmas, and his jaw tightened because he'd expected tears instead. My mother finally spoke, not to defend me, but to ask if I'd still cover her medical appointment on the 28th. That was when it clicked, that I wasn't their son at the table, I was a recurring charge. I stood up, cleared my plate and Lily's, and walked to the kitchen while the candles kept burning like nothing had changed. The sink growled as leftovers disappeared, and through the window, I saw my grey Corolla in the driveway, the only asset no one else's name touched. At least I wouldn't be sleeping on a couch tonight. Hours later, while the house slept, I folded sweaters into a suitcase and felt paper where paper didn't belong. Bank statements sat tucked beneath the utilities I organized for tax season, addressed to my father but tied to an account I didn't recognize. The balance climbed month by month while my savings bled out. A glossy brochure slid free with the papers, a used fishing boat docked on Lake Wylie, down payments circled hard enough to tear the page. Delivery scheduled for right after the holidays. They waited until I paid December before cutting me loose. A quiet knock made me flinch. Lily slipped inside, closing the door like noise could summon consequences. She asked if I was really leaving, and I couldn't answer because the numbers were still burning holes in my hands. She saw the brochure and went pale. She told me they planned to use my room for storage once the boat arrived. Then she told me the truth about the dental appointments my insurance covered. How Mom came home swollen and smiling. Not from teeth but fillers. I checked my banking app and felt something hollow out. 6 months ago, I had 10,000 saved for my own place. Now I had less than 800 and a family, who had already replaced me. Lily admitted Dad warned her to stay quiet, or she'd be next. I hugged her anyway, the kind of hug you give when you don't know how to fix anything. Later, zipped suitcase by my feet, I sat in my car with the engine off and the heater running, staring at the porch light I'd paid to repair. My phone buzzed with a voicemail from Aunt Carla, already choosing sides. I didn't listen yet. I just sat there realizing Christmas wasn't when they kicked me out. It was when I finally saw why. By the time I pulled onto the main road, my phone was already lighting up with messages from relatives who had only heard my father's version of Christmas. Aunt Carla's text was the loudest, accusing me of abandoning my parents after everything they'd supposedly sacrificed. And I deleted it without replying, because defending myself to an audience he prepped felt pointless. I spent the first night sleeping in my car behind a grocery store near Lake Wylie. Windows cracked for air, radio low, pretending it was temporary so my chest wouldn't tighten. On the third night, a friend from an old photography gig let me crash in his spare room, and the mattress smelled like detergent instead of resentment. I woke before dawn every morning out of habit, reaching for a phone that used to carry everyone else's emergencies. The days became a blur of calls and confirmations as I dismantled the life I'd been paying for piece by piece. I canceled streaming services I never watched, insurance policies I wasn't using, and auto drafts that funneled my paycheck into a house I was no longer allowed to enter. Each customer service agent sounded mildly impressed, like people rarely volunteer to stop being used. At night I laid receipts across the floor and realized how carefully I'd avoided seeing the pattern while I was inside it. The water heater replacement, the roof patch after a storm, Lily's school laptop, the groceries charged during months I skipped lunches. I photographed everything with my phone, not for revenge, but because I needed proof that my memory wasn't lying to me. Lily texted me late one evening, saying Mom was telling neighbors I'd had some kind of breakdown and couldn't handle adult responsibility. A minute later, another message came through asking if she could stay at a friend's place because Dad had started drinking again. I told her none of this was her fault, and that I was figuring something out, even though my plan was still just breathing and not going back. Christmas decorations came down on the street where I was staying, and seeing them stacked on curbs felt like the world agreeing to move on without permission. I started waking from dreams where I was still at that table, smiling through dinner while everyone waited for me to stop being useful. The call from my father came on a gray afternoon, his voice calm in a way that meant he was already angry. He said I needed to come back and talk like adults, because family business shouldn't involve outsiders. When I didn't answer, he left a voicemail reminding me that my name was still tied to more than I thought. That night, Lily sent me a photo of my old room, half empty, boxes stacked where my bed used to be. She said Dad told her they were making space for something important, and that I should have expected it. I drove past the house once after midnight and saw unfamiliar tire tracks in the driveway leading toward the backyard. The porch light flicked on as if someone was watching, and my phone buzzed at the same moment with an alert from my bank app. There was a notification about a failed login attempt from a device I didn't recognize, flagged near my parents' address. I pulled over, heart hammering, refreshing the screen until another alert came through showing a second attempt, this one not blocked. Before I could call the bank, my phone rang, and when I saw my father's name, I knew whatever he was about to say meant the line between us was officially gone. The police cruiser sat crooked at the edge of the driveway, like a punctuation mark nobody wanted. And the neighbor's blinds twitched as Diane opened the door, wearing a sweater she'd already decided would make her look like the victim. I told her I was there for the rest of my property and said it evenly enough that it surprised us both. The house smelled stale, like old coffee, and a rushed attempt to cover it with citrus spray, and every step echoed as if the place had already hollowed itself out. An officer stood near the hallway while I moved room to room collecting the things that were still mine, which turned out to be fewer than memory insisted they should be. When Diane tried to stop me from taking the desk I bought last spring, I handed the officer the receipt I'd kept folded in my wallet, like insurance against gaslighting. In my bedroom, the shelves were bare where my camera gear had been, and I felt something cold settle when I realized nobody planned to tell me. Lily had warned me the night before that Mom had sold a few things to cover bills, and seeing the empty spaces made the word sold feel deliberately small. I was loading the last box when Mark's truck screeched into the driveway, and he stepped out holding a set of keys that used to live in my pocket. He announced loudly that I owed him half the car, because he'd paid for things parents are supposed to pay for, and the officer cut him off with a request for paperwork. I handed over the title and registration I'd organized weeks earlier, both clean, both only in my name, and the argument died in Mark's throat mid-sentence. The keys changed hands with a dull clink that sounded final, and for the first time, I saw my father look genuinely unsure of where his authority had gone. I didn't say goodbye when I pulled away, but in the mirror I saw Lily standing on the porch with her arms crossed tight, watching me leave and not pretending she wasn't relieved. By New Year's Day, I was in a small rental near Lake Wiley with mismatched furniture, and a door that locked because I chose it, not because I paid for it. Lily started coming by on weekends, slowly at first, like she was testing whether peace could be real without conditions attached. She told me the house went into foreclosure after January 1st, and that Mark blamed the economy, the bank, and eventually me, in that order. Diane sent letters I didn't open, and Aunt Carla left voicemails that grew less certain as months passed, and no one came to rescue the story they'd agreed on. My finances stabilized in a way that felt boring and miraculous, with bills paid early, savings rebuilding, and no mystery transfers leaving my account. I kept photographing on the side, not because it saved me, but because it reminded me that I could still create things without being consumed by them. Sometimes I woke up with that old panic buzzing in my chest, the belief that my worth depended on how much damage I could absorb. And then it would fade when I remembered where I was. The quiet in my place wasn't loneliness, it was absence of threat. And learning the difference took longer than I expected. I didn't forgive my parents, but I stopped needing them to understand, which felt like the real ending. Looking back, I see now that survival isn't dramatic once you're out of danger. It's just steady and a little boring, and deeply kind. If this story resonated with you, I'm glad you stayed. And I hope it reminds you that boundaries aren't cruelty, they're clarity. Follow along if you want more real stories about choosing yourself without burning everything down. What was the moment you realized helping someone had turned into hurting yourself? And what did you do next?